Yes.
There it is. Hello, everybody. Welcome to String Theory, the live YouTube show where you ask the questions and we give the answers concerning all strings, things, string things, string things. I hope you're good. I hope everybody's well. And we're here, as we are every Wednesday night. And I want to give a shout out to our gracious sponsors, G&G Music in Antigonish, Glen Gotel, thank you so much. Boucher Guitars, Recording King Guitars, Levy Straps, and a special mention out tonight to Fantasy Music in Halifax and Spring Garden Road, who's also a Recording King and Boucher dealer for that part of the province. And we're having a good time here every week with you guys, and there you go. That's why we do it. This is a ton of fun, and I think that's about all we have to say. If you want to, if you like what you see and are having a good time with us, you want to send us a little money to help us keep going, feel free to send some cash to jpcormier38@gmail.com by email transfer, or you can do it through PayPal at paypal.me/jpcormiermusic. If you haven't hit subscribe on this channel, please hit it. That helps us immensely with YouTube and the notification bell. And some exciting announcements this week concerning YouTube. Our membership section is opening up, so you can have a paid membership and get all kinds of secret extra things that no one else will see. And the announcement of a really big show coming up Friday night. Really big show. We've just about worked ourselves to death on it. So there we go. So let's get started tonight here on String Theory. And the lovely Ginger is over in her normal spot there, doing her thing and talking to all of you nice people. And one thing we're going to do right off the top is, last week we were live at G&G Music, and we had some internet issues because we didn't bring our little interwebs box with us. And yay, rural internet! So we weren't able to see the winner of the trivia question. So we're going to announce him today. The winner of last week's trivia question was a gentleman named Ryan Nelson. Ryan, if you're watching this, send an email to jpcormier38@gmail.com, and you're the winner of the $50 certificate for any Recording King guitar from G&G Music, and the strap, set of strings, string winder, and you can go down to G&G anytime and pick that up and browse through their awesome selection, which is cycling very quickly because Glenn's selling so many guitars that Robin's running out of people to build them. So anyhow, get down there and check it all out. It's really good. So congratulations to Ryan Nelson. That's your prize, and it was a special prize that night because we were with Glenn live at his shop. And there'll be another giveaway tonight, another trivia question. And so you're not the only ones that ask the questions around here. It's me too. So anyhow, let's go to our first, oh geez, I see a list piling up there in the corner already. What do we have?
We got Lyle Goldberg.
Hi Lyle, how you doing, brother?
Say I'm a Scruggs-style banjo player who would like to incorporate some melodic licks into my playing and make it more interesting. I have found melodic style to be challenging. Any advice appreciated?
The only advice I give you is listen to the master of melodic banjo playing, which was Bill Keith. Bill Keith in the 60s and 70s pretty well invented melodic banjo playing. He worked actually for Monroe. He worked for Bill and Monroe, and I actually have literally a jam tape of Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys at a garage party in the 70s when Keith was playing with him. And Bill Keith, of course, didn't stay with Monroe because he was far too progressive for what Monroe's tastes were. But I'll tell you the album that I heard of Bill Keith's that completely turned me on to melodic banjo playing, as I do it all the time myself, was an album that Bill Keith made called Something Borrowed, Something Old, Something New, Something Borrowed, Something Blue. And it was a great record. It's on Rounder, I believe, or possibly Flying Fish, but that's the name of the record. And of course, if there's any, I'm sure that there's probably resources online to buy books, because Bill wrote several books on melodic banjo. And just as a side note, if you didn't know this, the type of what we call Scruggs tuners, where you can set the D and B string to stop and start and tune the notes with the cams and everything, those are actually Keith tuners. Keith invented those. And so yeah, this man was brilliant. I met Bill Keith several times, and he was a hell of a guy. He was a real character. He lived in Maine, I think, and he would come to the festival, like in Brunswick, Maine, and set up a big teepee. And that's where he would be kind of holding court for the whole weekend. And he had 4 of these Keith tuners on his banjo, so he could set all 4 strings to tune, wherever he wanted them to stop and start. And his version of Old Lang Syne is one of the most brilliant pieces of banjo music ever constructed. And it's on that album. That album is a primer for melodic banjo. And as I said, there's so many. Once you start to figure out melodic banjo, a lot of it starts to become self-evident. The more you play it, the better you get at it, and the more you can fit melodies into it. Once you learn the basic premise of it, it becomes quite simple. And because you're dealing with an instrument in an open tuning, it becomes very simple. It's just a little confusing at the start to get it going. But like I said, if you listen to Bill Keith, you just can't go wrong. He invented it. So there's a good question, by the way, too. All right, who else do we have?
John Condon in Ireland.
Hello, John Condon in Ireland. How you doing, brother? Cheers.
He wants to know what your opinion is of buying a guitar unseen off reverb. Is it too much of a gamble to buy an expensive guitar online without playing it first?
That's a very good question, because I just bought a guitar off reverb a couple days ago. But with that being said, Reverb's a pretty trusted site. They have a very good seller and buyer review system. So people that are buttholes are not going to do well on Reverb. So the chances of them, selling you a piece of crap fraudulently is fairly low. I think you're a lot safer on Reverb than you are on eBay. eBay, I've heard nightmare stories about people buying stuff that they thought was one thing and they got it was completely another thing. And the other part of that equation is what are you buying, right? If you're buying, let's say you were buying a 1965 D28 Martin, right? If the pictures look like it's in one piece, buy it, because there's not much that, unless the guy sends you some other guitar that's in the pictures, you're getting what you pay for, right? But if you're buying a new expensive guitar, unless you know exactly what it is and you've played it in some shops, or you know someone who has one, or you should try to have some experience with an unknown instrument before you buy it sight unseen. Now, I'm not saying this just to be funny, but you can buy Boucher sight unseen because they're awesome. I've never seen a bad one. Companies like Recording King, chances are that you probably get away pretty good with something like that, but they're a factory-made instrument, of course. And same with any other company. Yamaha, Gibson, New Martins, Taylors. Guitars are so subjective that unless you're buying something that's very specific, and the reason you're buying it is because it's special, and you don't really care if it sounds fantastic when you get it, as long as you want it because of what it is, then you're safe to to buy it. But if it's something that you could see in a shop first, locally, I would strongly advise you to go play it. And then also realize that not every guitar of that model from that company is going to be identical, which is a sad fact. You could play like, a certain model of Taylor in a shop and then order one and it doesn't sound the same, because that's just the nature of guitars. So yeah, it's almost 6 of one, half dozen of the other. If you know what you're buying because it's like one of a kind or special, go ahead and buy it. You're probably safe. And if you're looking at something that's easily accessible in a shop, go play one. And then, if you like what you saw, you can take a chance that what's being sold to you will be as much like the one you tried as you're getting from the guy on Reverb. I just ordered actually a really cool discontinued Recording King called the Century 23. And I know what they sound like because I researched them on YouTube and I saw the reviews and I saw a bunch of different reviews and heard the guitars. So I have a general idea and know from Recording King quality what they're like. So I bought that guitar and it was very cheap. It's a cheap instrument, but I know it'll get here and it'll be probably what I want. And if it's not, well, it wasn't a great deal of money. So just be careful. If it's a ton of money too, be careful. So it's a good question. Very good question. Who's next?
Jeffrey Clarke.
Jeffrey Clarke?
Yes.
How you doing, Jeffrey? Nice to have you on String Theory.
They want to know what kind of strings were on the Recording King 328 in the comparison video.
All the guitars that I have right now, like any guitar I own, is strung with Elixir light gauge, phosphor bronze, 12 to 53. That's all I use. It's all I've used for years. I haven't found a string anywhere that will last as long or sound as good as an Elixir. So that's what I use. That was easy.
Mm-hmm. Next is Caper Away.
Caper Away. Mm-hmm. I know you've been here before.
They're wondering if you've ever tried any of the Recording King single-O guitars. If so, what did you think?
I haven't, but I'm going to. And I'm lying. I have tried single-O guitars in a shop, and didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with them, so I can't give a valid opinion. But I'm like I said, that Century 33 that I'm getting is actually sort of a double O guitar. And the single O's, I've always liked them because of the way they look, and I'm going to get one. As a matter of fact, there's some single O's at Fantasy Music in Halifax. And I'm pretty sure that Glenn at G&G will be ordering some of them too, because they're so cool looking. And what I've seen online, watching independent people review them and play them online in front of good microphones, they all sound very, very good. They sound like vintage instruments, and I love that. That's one of the things I just love about them. And I've always loved old sounding instruments. And one of the reasons I gravitate, of course, towards the Epiphone Masterbills, because they sound like they're 100 years old, and I just love that. It's an idiosyncrasy of mine that where I pull out a Boucher, and I've got this Canon in my hand, or one of my nice Yamahas or whatever, and that's almost commonplace for me to have that type of instrument in my hand. But the idea of being able to pick a guitar up and you sound like you just stepped off a Carter family record, that's a whole other deal, right? So I think generally they sound very good, and from what I've heard, and I don't own one yet, but I will own one for sure, because as you guys are noticing, I'm really liking Recording King. They're a great budget-minded guitar for people who want something really cool, or something modern, like this OM version of their 28, which is an all solid with Adirondack top for under $1,000. It's just a great little guitar, and something that you can buy and have for the rest of your life, until you decide to buy something more expensive, because everybody has their dream instrument, and whether that be whatever it is, a Gibson or a Martin or a Boucher or a Taylor or whatever, Collings, there's a million of them, right? So, yeah, I think that I think if you can find a recording king, the single low bodies in a shop somewhere, go try them, because I bet you any money they sound great and they're a ton of fun to play. At least that's what I've found with everything that I've had. And I'm going to do a video on my Century 33 when I get it. It's coming all the way from Missouri, of all places. And Recording King is also sending me a triple-aught body with a torrefied top and a cutaway, which will end up being, the budget version of my signature guitar, which will be very cool for people to be able to get if they can't afford, to spend a lot of money on my signature model guitar. They can get this one, and it's going to be, a same body size, cutaway, slotted headstock. So I'm kind of stoked about that, to see that guitar. And generally I believe their small body guitars sound just like what they're supposed to sound like. Old catalog guitars, which is magic. Nobody's doing that right now. So yeah. So best of luck if you can find one. Pick it up. I guarantee you won't be sorry. Especially, looking at the price of them. There's nothing to be sorry about. So there you go. Thanks for the question. Who's next?
Shane Arsenault.
Hello, Shane.
He's taken an interest in learning reels on guitar. Aside from St. Anne's and Temperance, are there any tunes you recommend learning?
Oh, God. Jeez. How many do you want?
And go.
Yeah. Any of them. There's, I probably know 1,500 reels that I could play on the guitar or the fiddle and some on the mandolin and some on the banjo. It's, there's no limitation. There's no limitation. So don't even get that in your head, right? I'll give you a good example. This is a fun one. When I was just like you at one time. I was a bluegrass player and Chet player and Jerry Reed and Django Reinhardt and all that stuff. And I had a repertoire that I was determined at that time to be, to play Americana. And when I started searching around for tunes, I tried to find the hardest thing I could find. And so like St. Anne's Reel. What was the other one he mentioned? St. Anne's and
Temperance.
The Temperance. Like the Temperance Reel was on my very first album. And I really learned it from, look at this thing ringing when I'm talking. The Jarvis Benoit Quartet is where I learned that tune. And but as things progressed, I just went crazy. I took every source I could find, and like a tune that I learned because it was so hard was a Winston reel in B flat called Tom Marsh. So to give you an idea of how crazy it can actually get, this is a fiddle tune, right? And I don't even know if I can play it, but I'll try. Just so you get an idea of how just how complicated you can get, what the levels are. There's no limits. There's no limits. Anything you can want to learn and transpose onto a guitar from the fiddle, it can be done. There's no question it can be done. That's insanely difficult and crazy. Like nobody would ever think to play that tune on a guitar, but it absolutely can be played on the guitar. So the best way to go is just like follow Like the best advice, if you're already playing tunes like the Temperance and the St. Anne's Reel, what I would do is learn tunes in different keys. This teaches you to utilize the scale form of each key and find out where all the notes are. And so if you're playing Temperance, which is in G, and you're playing St. Anne's, which is in D, the next thing you should learn should be an A, without a capo. This is a real exercise, and the way to do that is to find the simplest A tune and learn it, right? And or A minor, an A minor tune. A minor tunes are even easier because the scale is relative to C, so it's a lot easier. A major is very difficult to play without a capo. So, and then cycle around. When you get up into the flats in F and B flat, use a capo. Play at the 3rd fret in G and D, and that gives you F and B flat, right? So, and that's how I would do it. I would cycle through keys and learn some E minor reels. They're easier to play because the relative minor of E minor or major is G. So E minor reels are easy, and also utilize the forgiveness of jigs. Jigs are so easy to play on the guitar because they're slow compared to a reel. They have a different cadence, but the notes are coming at the fence posts are coming at you way slower in our jig, right? So, like, get a reel in G, learn a jig in G. Same thing with D, A, E minor, and then start working in C. There's tunes in C you can play on the guitar without a capo as well, right? And that's how you do it. You just build your repertoire slowly and learn tunes that work on your weaknesses. That's how you learn. And you make mistakes and you mess it all up and you sound like crap, and then for a couple of weeks and then you sound fantastic. As you force your hands to learn, your brain to learn, muscle memory to occur, all of a sudden you're playing what you want to play. It takes time. You can't do these things overnight. It takes time and diligent practice. There's no shortcut to any of this. But if you love it, it shouldn't be any work. You never work at something you love. So that's my advice for all guitar players, not just you. Thanks for the question. It was a good question. Awesome. Who's next, Ginger?
Lily Cat.
Lily.
What do you think of Seagull guitars, in particular the new Seagull S6 Original?
We've had this question before, and I just don't have an opinion. I don't play Seagulls, and I know nothing about them. I've actually seen some Seagulls that were really good guitars, but they were old, and I've never really owned one. I don't think I may have owned. Maybe I did own one once, years and years ago. Perhaps an artist model, like one of those maple OM cutaway dealies, but I really don't. I don't know much about them, and when I pick them up, they all sort of feel the same, and so that drives me away from them. They're predictable, that's for sure, and they all sound, a certain way, and they are an affordable guitar, and in my opinion, they're probably going to stay together. Because I've seen them that are 30 years old and they're still together. So, but it's really not a guitar that I know much about, because I never gravitated towards. They never made anything that made me want to buy one, and that goes for a lot of companies. So it isn't just Seagull. I'm not picking on them. They just haven't built anything that I would buy for my own tastes and my own style. So there you go. What's next?
Next is Tim Bennett. He gets to jump the line because he used Super Chat.
Tim, Super Chat. Sweet.
He wants to know how you care for your right-hand fingernails.
My right hand, I know, a lot of guitar players put a lot of time into their right hand fingernails, but you'd be surprised that I like Chet and Tommy Emmanuel both. I didn't even know this about Tommy till, quite a ways in, but I knew that about Chet. But we all use, and I didn't know this when I was learning. This was an accident. So we all use a combination of nail and flesh. So Chet used a bit more nail than flesh, but they were real nails. He trimmed them and kept them at the right angle and point, and there was a lot of work that went in. Well, maybe not a ton of work, but enough to keep them the right length and keep them smooth and emery boarded and filed and whatever. Right? I don't put any time into them. The a weird thing about me is I can only play really great fingerstyle at certain times during the cycle, because when my nails get too long and they start to interfere with my tone, I cut them off, because I found that if I work on them with a file or a board, they get weak. So I just cut them off and let them regrow, and the calluses on my flesh take over the job. But recently, we just did a massive project here, and I left my nails on because I needed them for certain tunes in the show. I just cut them off today, and so it'll be a couple of weeks or a week until I have sort of that optimum amount of nail behind my flesh, the pads on my fingers, to get the kind of tone I like, right? I can get by without them, no problem. But I've always been that way. The only time I ever grew a nail and maintained it was when I was frailing banjo all the time in a band, and I kept that nail long, trimmed, completely, perfectly filed all the time, because I needed it to get the tone I wanted. But it was a pain in the ass, because it was always catching on the strings, on the guitar, the bass. It was no good. It was too long. And so, yeah, there's a million different schools in that situation, right? There's people that put on fake nails. Tony McManus, who's like one of the greatest fingerstyle players on the friggin' planet, he uses fake nails that he actually gets put on at a salon. And they're heavy acrylic, heavy nails. And you always see him before a gig with the emery board. He's like, and he's always messing with them and putting polish on them to keep them from splitting and cracking. And it's a lot of work. And I think, Chet came from the same kind of school as I did. And so did Tommy Emmanuel. Kind of learned in isolation and didn't have that kind of technology. And they just grew their nails as much as they could. And if you're not healthy, your nails aren't strong. It's those kind of things. But I've always had brittle nails. It's sort of in my family, and there's no problem for me to have a nail like that. And I'll be playing a tune, and all of a sudden I split the corner off, and then it's no good. I got to cut the whole thing off. So I just let them do their thing, and when they get too long, too scraggly, I start again. But with that being said, as I mentioned, there's a million ways to do it. And if you're really intent on using your nails as a real tool, I would suggest using fake nails, because the guys that I've seen who do it, man, they get killer tone. But it's a tremendous amount of work to keep them up. And money. It costs money to get those things installed. And if they break during a show, you're done. You're finished. If you lose a nail during a performance, there's no way to replace it. So all those things have to be weighed out. So thanks for the super chat. That's awesome. Thank you so much. God bless your heart. Who's next?
Michael Aucoin.
Michael Aucoin. How's you doing? Michael's back in the house.
He's wondering about strings for electric guitars.
I don't even have a preference, as long as I play tens. That's all I can tell you. I don't like super light strings. 10 is about as light as I'll go on the little E string, and but I mostly play Gretches. So I've even played flat wound strings on a Gretsch with a wound third. So, but generally, what I have on there right now are just a set, I think, of Ernie Ball 10s, and that's it. So I know a lot of players that get really fancy with their string selection and custom gauges and all. I don't do any of that. I'm not that far into it. But even on a Telecaster, I would use a 10, not a 9 or anything like that. It was really super slinky, really bendy strings. I don't like them. I pull them out of tune so easily that I can't use them because I'm used to playing a flat top. So 10s it is. And as I said, Ernie Ball's a great. I love Ernie Ball, and Diodario, fantastic string company. They do great electric strings, and yeah, so that's that. Who else we got?
Taylor 40th.
There we go. Taylor's back. Hey, how you doing, man?
Back with Doc Watson. He barely made a misnote. Being blind, his visualization of the fretboard must have been exceptional. Is this ability underestimated for us mortal guitar players?
Do you think his blindness gave him extra?
Or being able to visualize the fretboard.
Boy, that's a fantastic question. Well, let me put it this way. I can play everything I play with my eyes closed. So whatever that tells you, that's a deep question. But it might have a very simple answer. Is muscle memory. I keep preaching this to everyone. And it's true. The more you play, and when you're sure you're playing it right, when you practice something and make sure, positive, that you're doing it exactly like the person that you're emulating or learning it from, or the tablature you're learning it from, or whatever. When you're positive, that you're playing it exactly right, something starts to happen. If you keep practicing it that way until you can just play it like easily and you're not struggling, when that struggle ends is when the muscle memory's kicked in. And at a certain level, if you keep playing it and keep playing it right without mistakes, there's going to come a point in time where you do not have to look at your left hand at all. And I don't. Unless I'm playing something incredibly, ridiculously difficult. There's many tunes I play that I can do with my eyes closed. And it's many of them, probably 80 or 90% of them. And it's just muscle memory. And it is visualization of the fretboard, but it's visualization by the left hand. I'm not making any, well, see, I'm a little messed up because I got this synesthesia shit, right? So I can see weird things going on in my head triggered by sound, but it still, my hand is seeing the fretboard, not my eyes. I'm watching my hand do stuff, but I'm not, my hand's not taking the signal from my eyes. And that's all muscle memory. Anyone can do it. Anybody can do this. But you have to have a practice regimen that's very serious. And you can't slough through things or get a passage or an idea half-assed. You have to go all the way, and make sure that it's just exactly what you're hearing someone else do that you want to play like, or exactly what's on the tablature page. And even that, sometimes you have to check against where they lifted the tablature from to make sure they're right. Because sometimes people make simplified versions of tablature, and it completely ruins the original intent of the actual player. So it's all about practice, and to the point where you are so comfortable, you know when you pick up the guitar you can play this one thing. And once that started to occur, it isn't too much long after that where you just don't need to look at it anymore because your hand sees it. So it's not, I think that's why his blindness had nothing, he could do it because he was feeling it anyway. That's what we're doing. If you're too much visualizing on something on your left hand, you're not letting muscle memory happen, right? So you got to kind of let your brain do the work and let the hands do the work. And it won't be long before you can play things you're very comfortable with your eyes closed. You have to be able to do that, to perform certain things. Like when I play if you're singing, right? If you're singing and you don't have a certain level of muscle memory, you miss chords and licks while you're singing because you can't look at the guitar. You can just glance at it, right? But your face is stuck to a microphone. So that's part of performance, right? You have to commit as much as you can on the guitar or any instrument to muscle memory so that you can do other things. You can sing, you can concentrate on the right hand, right? Which often changes. The right hand is dynamic. It has, you can play harder, faster, softer. There's all these little things that occur in the right hand that are fluid. The left hand's not fluid. The left hand has to go where it has to go, and that's only place it can go, or the tune doesn't get played. So there's like two different forms of muscle memory happening simultaneously. So again, practice, steadfast, practice, 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 practice. And be sure that you're not telling yourself that you're doing something right when you're not. It's easy to do that. It's easy to get something 80% and go, wow, I can play this. And you get all excited and whatever. Oh, geez, I can do it. And if you take a close look at it, you're making 20% of mistakes. And that's dangerous. Because then you're memorizing mistakes. So there you go. That's how Doc Watson did what he did. He was blind, but he was only utilizing what all players utilize if they're practicing correctly. And not concentrating on anything except just letting the hand, learning whatever they're trying to do and letting the hand memorize it. And then once that's done, you have muscle memory and you can be looking over here, you can close your eyes, and you can even start to feel your way around the neck to ad lib, to improvise, because your arm starts to remember the distance between frets. I know how far I have to move to go from the 3rd fret up to the 5th up to the 7th, the 7th up to the 12th. You know, your hand touches the body there, so you know you're up at the 12th. Like these weird little keys and signals, right? So, again, practice. Practice and love it. You have to do both things. Who's next?
John Zaslow.
John
Zaslow?
Zaslow. Is this a newcomer?
It's a name I don't recognize.
Sweet. Welcome, John, to String Theory.
Have you ever played a baritone acoustic guitar? Do you own one? Any comments on that kind of guitar?
I love baritone guitars, and I don't own one, and I want one so badly. Oh, they're so awesome. They're amazing instruments. If anybody out there never saw one of these things, they're basically a regular guitar, but they have a gauge of strings that lets them to be tuned like nearly an octave lower than a regular guitar. So you're playing regular chords and all this stuff, and it's a big long neck, you know, because it's a big scale, because it's tuned low, and you're playing these chords, but they're all super low, like way low, and they have such a great voice. They're tremendous for, I think, studio work, to add this other rich bottom end to things that you just can't get from anything else. A great example of the use of now I'm not going to remember, yes, I remember her name, Feist. She had a song called Mushaboom, which was a massive hit. Well, the guitar that you hear at the start of that thing and all through the song, it's a baritone guitar. It's her playing a baritone guitar. And it sounds so low and funky and weird, but that's the magic of it, right? And they're around. You hear them on records, you know, from time to time. You hear one and you go, wow, that's so cool. And look, another one of my favorite ones I ever heard was Bruce Coburn doing Ribbon of Darkness on an electric baritone guitar. And he did it as this really slow, Ribbon of Darkness over me. It's really slow, and this giant baritone sounding electric guitar. And it was magic. It was magic. I couldn't believe what it sounded like. There was nothing else on the recording, just him and this baritone electric guitar. So, yes, I love them. I don't have one. The one I want to get is actually an Alvarez. They only cost about $600, and I've played 2 or 3 of them now, and every single one of them was a Canon for $600, $650 maybe. So that's, if I'm gonna buy one, that's probably gonna be the one, unless I can find, another maker that makes one as nice for, a relatively affordable price. Because it's not something I could play. I would take out on the road because you can only do so many things with it. But for creative purposes, to have one here in the studio to play around with and write with and design recordings with that as a either a foundation or an additive into a track that has regular guitars on it, or even a banjo or a mandolin or some higher voice, it would be amazing. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of baritone guitars. Who's next?
Next to my cousin, Mark Doucette.
Hey, that's the guitar player.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you, man.
What do you suggest for a simple, affordable, easy to install acoustic pickup?
K&K. And they're not easy to install. They are relatively, but you have to get somebody to put them in. You can put them in yourself. There's a full instructional, there's a video and a manual and all that stuff that shows you how to put them in. But the K&K is the best pickup you can buy. It has no battery. It has no crap. It just goes in. There's a jig that fits down through the bridge pin holes that pulls the sensors up where they're supposed to be, and you glue them to the bridge plate inside, and it comes out to your end pin jack, and it's done. Super hot, no battery, no messing around, nothing to break down. It's all I use. I have one in every guitar that I tour with, has a K&K pickup in it. And the one you want to get is probably it's called the Pure Mini, or the Country Western Pure Mini, and it's an end pin jack and 3 little sensors like the size of maybe a peanut. They're not very big. 3 of them, they go on, and it tells you how to do it. It can be done by just about anybody, but it's always better to have a professional do that type of installation because they're fastened in the guitar with crazy glue. So you don't want to make a mistake unless you have the solvent that'll take them off. So you'll never regret it. You will never regret using a K&K. They sound just like a guitar coming through a microphone when you plug them in. They're unbelievable. It's all I've used for, I don't know how many, well over a decade. I got the first one put in my a D28 Martin at Groom Guitars in Nashville way back like in 2007 or 8. And I've been using them ever since then. So there you go. It's like whatever that is. That's ridiculous. That's that's a long time. So yeah, everything I got here, and Boucher, as a testament to K&K, before I even knew them, that's what they were putting in their guitars, and they still do outfit more than half of their instruments with K&K, the other half with Fishman, because people want a volume button on the inside. K&K has nothing. Just plug it into whatever you're using and go. So that's what I would do. And they're cheap. $120 plus $80 to install it by a professional. You're out the door. Keep picking.
Next is Cam McMaster. He made a super chat question.
How you doing, Cam? Thanks, buddy. Again, nice to see you. Every week you're here, brother. Thank you so much for that.
He'll be here on Friday too, he said.
Sweet.
He wonders what 3 qualities make a good guitarist.
A good guitar?
Guitarist.
Oh.
Guitar player. 3
qualities. I couldn't even tell you. I could tell you. The first thing that for me, this is not a pronouncement of anything. It's my opinion, right? When I look at a guitar player that I've never seen before, I look at 3 things. I look at their ability to play music that's come before them exactly like it came before them. So if you want to impress me, when you play a Chet Atkins tune or a Doc Watson tune or a Tony Rice tune or a Norman Blake tune or whatever, if you nail it just like they did it, that's number one strike for you right there. And then the second thing I want to see out of a guitar player is originality, which is almost a total counterpoint to the first thing. So you've got to be able to play the masters, and you've got to be able to do something I never heard before. So that's two things. And the third thing, those are the two most important things to me. The third thing is emotion. I think that's might be the bigger of the three things is the amount of emotion a guitar player can push out to an audience, no matter how big it is. Whether you're just sitting there with one or two people or you're on stage in front of 500 people, there has to be something coming out of the guitar besides sound. And I'm telling you, we all know and have seen players that they speak when they play. And those are the greatest guitar players in the world. Those are the guys that you listen to and just, you either get goosebumps or you cry or you laugh or you just don't know what to do with yourself because there's something coming out of the instrument that's more than sound. And those are the three things that I have to say are for me to look at a player and go, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And if it doesn't happen, I can still appreciate their technicality and I can still appreciate their abilities. But the chances of me listening to them for an extended period of time is very slim because I've heard so much guitar in my life that you have to really be kicking some ass for me to want to listen to even more than one cut of what you're doing. Because I've heard it all before. We all have. All guitar players have studied for years and years. And it's beautiful, you know, there's times when that's not true, when you see a young player that's really trying hard, and I'll sit all night and listen to them because they're trying their asses off, right? And that's beautiful. That's a different story, right? But if you're a great technician and all of this, I don't want to mention any names, but there's people I can think of that they're fantastic technicians, but they don't move me. They don't move me. They have great chops. They have great ideas. They can play the masters if they feel like it, right? They often don't. But when they play, I don't get excited. I'm impressed by the technicality of it, but I don't get excited in here. And I have to have that. So that's just me. You should always judge players on your own merits, and also never discount players that you think are not as good as you or not as good as somebody else. Any player can teach you something. So, and I've said that to you many times on here and on the mastermusicmethod.com, our online school. I say it all the time. Don't ever discount anybody because they might do something that they just came up with by accident that you've never considered. And that's the beauty of guitar, right? That's the beauty of music in general. So, good question. What else we got?
We got John's horse.
Cool.
I lost the question. Here it is. When using a capo, do you press down the strings over the sound hole to get it back down from the capo sharp key instead of tuning with the keys? Tommy Emanuel did this? ? Recommended ?
I've never heard of that. That's interesting. Generally, when I put a capo on, like this one right here, first of all, you have to have a good capo. That's the first thing, right? You need to have a good capo. So a good capo, and this is a dandy. This is a G7. It's their new one they just came out with. It's got a thumb screw tightening bolt here, and it distributes even pressure over the fretboard, very even. I love this thing, and so for instance, we're in tune at the 3rd fret, right? So what's going to happen when we take this off? It doesn't matter what guitar or what capo you use. When we take this off, I can virtually guarantee you that the E string, the big E, is going to be flat, and possibly the B string will be sharp. There you go. So the big E was flat, sharp B. Even the E was a little louder. How did I know that? Because that's how every single guitar reacts to being capoed. Unless you're playing stuff, Bouchers don't do it. And I know Taylors are really good for accepting capos. And guitars don't like capos. So you have to buy good capos. These are excellent capos. I think Kaiser makes a great capo because it's so inoffensive and gentle. It's just a clothespin that goes on there, and it's a very large, it's a thick rubber, so it's very gentle on the strings. So the only thing that you may be referring to also, that when you put a capo on a guitar, tuning becomes a problem, because the capo, if it has to be too tight to get it to stop rattling, the capo gets too tight to actually, for the strings to move underneath it if you tune the guitar. I don't know. I've never heard of anything like that. It doesn't surprise me that Tommy Emmanuel came up with it. And but that's sort of the general thing, right? You have to have a good capo. You've got to know how. You literally have to know how a capo fits and affects your guitar. That's the point. So, and you have to know how different ones affect it. This type of capo will affect it differently than a Kaiser. A Kaiser is only one power, one strength. You put it on, that's it. You can't adjust it. This can be adjusted. A shub can be adjusted. Different capos can be adjusted. So you have to understand, you have to know your guitar and understand, if I make this too tight, I'm going to have problems with tuning. And I may not, and when I tune, I may like loosen a string, but it doesn't loosen until after. That's what capos do. So my string is sharp, so I slack the key off, but the capos grab the string. So that's why Tommy might be going like pushing them, puts the capo on, tunes it, pushes them, and gets them sliding underneath the pad of the capo. But again, you have to know your guitar, know the piece of gear you're using, and even as detailed as how the guitar reacts at each fret, because it's different. You put a capo on the 1st fret, it doesn't quite affect the guitar the same as it does at the 5th fret or the 7th fret, where it can really pull the guitar out of tune if the neck is not set up right and the capo's too strong, or you're tightening it too much, right? So yeah, that's a pretty interesting, very interesting. We're gonna do a trivia question. So the prize tonight is, as always, from our good friend Glenn Gotel up at G&G Music in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. Fantastic. He's a worldwide dealer for Boucher guitars and Recording Kings and anything else you can imagine. He can ship them anywhere in the world to you. And so he's a good friend, been helping us out here every week now on String Theory. So the winner of this trivia contest tonight will be getting the beautiful custom Levy's leather strap with the G&G logo on it. A set of strings, probably your choice, depending on what you want them for. He has everything you could possibly want. You get a little string winder free, and we're going to give a $25 gift certificate off of any Recording King guitar in the store. And he's doing so well with them, he's ordering them left and right. So even if I would imagine, even if you if there's one you want that's not there, he can order it for you, and he can ship them. He shipped them anywhere. He's shipping Bouchers and Recording Kings everywhere. So it doesn't matter where you are on the planet. He's also one of the number one dealers of the J.P. Cormier signature model Boucher guitar, and he's offered a $500 discount to anyone on the planet who wants to buy one of those guitars from him. He'll ship it to you anywhere in the world. And also, again, I want to throw a hello and a thank you out to Fantasy Music in Halifax and Spring Garden Road. They have great stock in there now. Very nice shop, and very respectful guys in there. They're nice guys, and they've showed a lot of respect to Boucher and me and Glenn and all. They're just good guys. It's a good shop. Go in and take a look over there too if you live in the city of Halifax and you don't feel like you can get up to Antigonish or whatever. That's a good spot to drop in on, trust me. And so the trivia question I love this trivia question because I get my trivia questions just by kind of living through the day, and I sit up here hours before the show starts listening to music, and I just try to get my brain around doing all this, and because I want to give you good advice and I want to be honest with you, and I don't want to look like an arsehole and tell you things that are wrong or maybe miss too many questions that I can't answer at all. So today something passed over the iPod music, and I thought, boy, that's a great question. So here's the question. Your prize, the nice leather strap, strings, winder, $25 off of any Recording King guitar. You can go pick it up at G&G Music when you win. And the first person to put the answer right here in the chat window of the YouTube broadcast right here will be the winner. The question is this. You all know my love for Chet Atkins. Chet Atkins cut an album with a very, very famous Canadian singer, guitar player in the 60s. What was the name of that Canadian singer and guitar player?
Nope, not Lenny Bro.
Not Lenny Bro, no. This might be harder than we thought.
It's not Anne Murray.
Not Anne Murray.
Or Lenny Gilland.
Nope. Chet Atkins in the 60s. I'll even give you the name of the album. The album was called Reminiscing.
Not Neil Young. Hank Snow.
Hank Snow. There's the answer. Hank Snow was a tremendous guitar player from right here in Nova Scotia. And he played his butt off on this record with Chet. And I love that album. It's such a good guitar player. Underrated, actually, as a guitar player. And so there you go. Who's the winner?
Richard Rattray.
Richard.
Rattray.
Richard.
I don't know if that's a real name or not.
Richard, you won the prize. So what you're going to do is email me right now at jpcormier38@gmail.com. I will forward that email on to Glenn, and you're all set. You can go in and get your package. If you can't get there, Glenn will gladly ship it to you, whatever you want. Your strap, strings, winder, and your gift certificate for a Recording King. He'll even ship the guitar to you if you want one of the ones that he has in stock. So there we go. So I'm going to close off the evening, and I want to thank everybody for doing this. But there's one thing I didn't mention tonight that I'd like to, is that we have a live premiere occurring this Friday night, on YouTube here, and it is the Primary Color live concert. And we have worked on this thing forever. It's a huge undertaking, and we cut the whole album in order from the floor here, live right from the floor. And it's a world premiere event, and we are super, super stoked for this concert. It was so hard, and I did my very best for you. So I hope you like it, and so tell everybody you know to come. 6 p.m. We're doing it at 6 o'clock because that puts it at about 10 o'clock in the UK, early afternoon out west. And everybody should be, having a little supper and a couple of beers around 6 o'clock on a Friday night here in the Maritimes. So please come and join us. Don't forget to hit subscribe on this channel. If you're watching and you enjoy what's happening here, please hit subscribe. And again, if you'd like to send us a few dollars, jpcormier38@gmail.com or paypal.me/jpcormiermusic. And we had so much fun, as we always do. Thanks to Glenn, Boucher, Levy's, Recording King, Fantasy Music in Halifax. We love yous all. We'll see you Friday night on the Primary Color Show at 6 p.m. Atlantic. And remember, guitar players, whoever has the most when they die wins.